Shit. Please, God.
This is God.
It didn't start with a glove or a scream. It started with a headline. A boy who refused to sleep. It said something was chasing him. It said if he closed his eyes, he'd die. 3 days later, he did. The death, and a few more like it, sent Wes Craven spiraling into a script about dreams you couldn't escape, killers who didn't wait for reality, and a monster who didn't need screen time to ruin your life. The movie looked like fiction, but it wasn't far off. The man behind the burns came from real trauma, the blood came from real accidents, and the fear, that part was never fake. So here are the scariest facts behind A Nightmare on Elm Street. Number 1, Freddy Krueger was originally a child molester. The first version of Freddy Krueger was worse than anything the screen eventually showed. Wes Craven had written him in as a predator, not just a murderer, but a molester. A shadow lurking near schools, the kind of fear parents whisper about behind closed doors. But outside the script, headlines in California were already filled with real cases, arrests, outrage, protests. The studio stepped in. Too real, they said. Too close to the news. So they changed the word, softened the backstory, gave the character a different kind of past, but the roots didn't go away. The idea of a man who preyed on innocents stayed stitched into the fabric, burned into the glove, hidden behind the grin. Freddy's legacy wasn't shaped in makeup, it was shaped in what they chose not to say out loud. Number 2, the boiler room was a real abandoned jail. They didn't build Freddy's lair on a soundstage, they found it. Buried under dust and rusted steel, the basement of Lincoln Heights Jail in Los Angeles became the backdrop for some of the film's most claustrophobic scenes. The jail had been shut down years earlier, crumbling stairwells, broken light fixtures, asbestos in the walls. No air conditioning, no safety net, just creaking pipes and real decay. The heat in that basement wasn't artificial. Crew members worked in thick humidity, soaked in sweat, surrounded by echoes that didn't feel staged. Wes Craven wanted the space to feel alive, breathing, sweating, groaning. He didn't have to fake it. Every hallway already carried the weight of something left behind. Freddy's world wasn't imagined. It was carved out of a place that knew how to hold screams. Number 3, Freddy's face came from a childhood encounter. Wes Craven was 10 years old when it happened. Late at night, alone in his apartment, he looked out the window and saw a man standing on the sidewalk, a fedora tilted low, coat hanging loose, burned skin stretched across his face. The man didn't move, he just stared. Craven backed away, heart pounding. But when he peeked again, the man was still there, watching. No words, no explanation. Then, without a sound, the figure turned and walked off into the dark. Decades later, Craven still remembered every detail. The hat, the silence, the way his fear filled the room before the man even stepped inside. That night never left him. When it came time to create a killer that could haunt dreams, he didn't need to invent one. He already had the face. Number 4, the production almost fell apart mid-shoot. Halfway through the shoot, the nightmare almost ended. Not on screen, but behind the camera. New Line Cinema lacked the budget. Investors pulled out. Paychecks stopped. Crew and cast kept working, waiting in silence as the checks cleared, or didn't. The office was little more than the founder's car trunk filled with scripts and hope. A few desperate weeks passed before a last-minute backer stepped in. Bob Shaye scrambled together the final funds. They resumed filming, shooting critical scenes under pressure that tasted like panic. Without that invisible push, the film would have stayed locked in a ledger. Instead, it became the spark that turned a tiny distributor into the house that Freddy built. Freddy survived money chaos. So did New Line. And so did the nightmare. Number 5, the actor playing Freddy cut himself with the glove. The first time Robert Englund wore the glove, it drew blood. Not from a victim, from him. The blades weren't props yet. They were metal, welded sharp, built for effect before safety. During rehearsals, Englund moved too fast and the glove caught the inside of his hand. The cut was small, but it left a sting that stayed. On set, he became cautious. Every gesture measured, every scratch choreographed. The glove was a weapon. Crew members were warned to keep their distance. England had to train with it, learn its balance, understand how to keep fear in the performance without drawing more blood. Behind every scene on camera was the memory of the first mistake. Freddy's glove looked dangerous because it was, and the scars proved it. Number 6, Freddy's sweater was designed to hurt your eyes. Red and green weren't chosen for holiday irony. They were chosen to disturb you. Wes Craven had read a scientific study on color perception, how certain combinations create visual tension. Red and green ranked highest. The brain struggles to process them side by side. It creates discomfort, a quiet agitation you can't explain. Craven liked that. Freddy wasn't supposed to blend in. He was supposed to crawl under your skin. The sweater was intentionally faded, uneven, stitched in a way that felt wrong to look at. It wasn't stylish. It was meant to make you squint. That small detail, two clashing colors, became one of the most iconic visuals in horror history. Every time Freddy appeared, your brain flinched first, even before the fear caught up. Number 7, the glove appeared in Evil Dead 2 because it was stolen. One of Freddy's original gloves vanished after filming. No official report, no apology, just gone. Years later, it showed up, nailed to a wall inside a cabin in Evil Dead 2. Not as a joke, as a message. Wes Craven and Sam Raimi had been trading horror nods for years. Craven hid Evil Dead on a TV screen in Nightmare on Elm Street. Raimi responded by hanging Freddy's glove near the cellar door. The prop was the real thing, taken from storage, slipped into another universe, left to rust between zombies and chainsaws. Number 8, Freddy appears for less than 7 minutes. The monster everyone remembers barely steps into the frame. Freddy Krueger, the icon burned into decades of nightmares, is on screen for just 6 minutes and 38 seconds. That's all it took. No monologues, no long chases, just fragments, shadows on a wall, a slow approach, a hand rising from water. Wes Craven knew fear didn't need time, it needed timing. The less you saw, the more your brain filled in. In the silence between those appearances, that's where the real tension lived. Freddy lingered in corners, behind lockers, inside dreams. He didn't need to chase the camera, he already lived in the audience. Every scream, every flicker, every claw scratch, carefully spaced like pressure points. 6 minutes of screen time, 40 years of memory. Number 9, 500 gallons of fake blood were used. The ceiling opened and swallowed Johnny Depp whole. In a bedroom drenched in red, the blood didn't stop. Poured upward in a geyser, painted the walls, soaked the lights. That one scene emptied most of the film's fake blood budget, nearly 500 gallons across the entire shoot, with the majority used in that single upside-down explosion. The set had been rigged to rotate. The bed was bolted to the ceiling. Cameramen stood on scaffolding, filming the room as gravity turned inside out. When they flipped the switch, it all went wrong. The blood sprayed in the wrong direction, short-circuited equipment, and knocked out power on set. Still, they kept the take. It was messy, violent, and surreal. Exactly what Craven wanted. A dream turned inside out. A death that refused to behave. Number 10, the bathtub scene was filmed over a pool. Heather Langenkamp spent hours lying still, surrounded by silence, floating above a hidden drop. The bathtub was a set piece built over a massive water tank. Beneath the porcelain shell, divers waited. Safety crews watched from below. One wrong move and the scene would fall apart. Freddy's glove, rising from between her legs, was operated underneath by a scuba diver in full gear. The shot required perfect stillness. No bubbles, no panic. Just a single creeping hand and a girl who had to act like she was dreaming, not sinking. The water magnified every sound, every breath, and the only way out was down. When the claw finally broke the surface, it didn't feel like a special effect. It felt like something ancient, reaching through the drain to take her home. Number 11, the actor who played Freddy scared crew members off camera. Robert Englund stayed in costume between takes, not for method, for momentum. The makeup took hours to apply. Glue, prosthetics, layers of burned flesh and shadow. Once it was on, he moved like Freddy, breathed like Freddy, and walked the set with the quiet rhythm of someone who wasn't pretending anymore. Crew members say he dragged the glove against pipes just to hear the screech. Not loud, just enough to cut through the conversation. Heather Langenkamp once turned a corner and saw him waiting, silent, still, watching. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't rehearsed, but it landed. Even when the camera stopped rolling, Freddy didn't leave the room. He stood in the dark, breathing behind the scars, reminding everyone that the dream was still happening, and no one could call cut on that. Number 12, the diva was married to the director until he fell for Nancy. Mimi Craven was cast as a nurse. Quiet role, soft lighting, one scene and gone. At the time, she was Wes Craven's wife, his partner behind the curtain while he built a world filled with fear. But something shifted during production. Craven spent more time with Heather Langenkamp. Long script sessions, night shoots, private rehearsals. The connection grew quietly, then not so quietly. By the time Nightmare on Elm Street wrapped, Wes and Mimi were separating. No press release, no headline, just a closing door behind the scenes of a film about trauma, survival, and things breaking from the inside. Years later, Heather called Wes her mentor, someone who believed in her, someone who saw something fragile and strong. In a movie about dreams turning against you, the heartbreak stayed off screen, but never far. Number 13, kids were too scared to sleep. After the movie hit theaters, some parents said their children wouldn't go to bed, not because of bad dreams, but because they were afraid the dreams would start. Reports trickled in, kids refusing to sleep alone, unplugging televisions, crying in their rooms without knowing why. Freddy Krueger had slipped past the screen. He wasn't just a character anymore. He was a threat with rules. Only in dreams, only when you're vulnerable. The fear spread in whispers, sleepovers that ended early, schoolyards where kids dared each other to say his name. One boy reportedly stayed up for 3 days straight before collapsing from exhaustion. The film had done something horror rarely manages. Turned bedtime into a gamble. The kind where waking up wasn't guaranteed. Number 14, the dream rhyme came from real children's games. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. Wasn't written in a writer's room. It came from the playground. Wes Craven had heard jump rope chants before, kids spinning rope and singing rhymes to pass the time, but something about their rhythm stuck. The sing-song melody, the way it looped, the way it sounded innocent even when the words weren't. He borrowed the structure and shaped the lyrics around Freddy, giving the film its lullaby of dread. Sung by little girls in white skipping rope on the sidewalk, the rhyme didn't need blood or claws. It lived in repetition. It worked its way into your head and stayed. That was the point. Number 15, sound design was engineered to creep you out. Freddy's world wasn't silent. It groaned. It scraped. It breathed like something alive and tired of waiting. The boiler room sounds were built from slowed-down recordings of hissing steam, grinding metal, and animal cries warped into something inhuman. The sound team layered frequencies meant to rattle the body, low pulses you don't hear so much as feel. Every footstep echoed too long. Every claw drag left a sonic scar. The goal was to create discomfort, the kind that lingers after the scene ends. Wes Craven once said fear lived in the pauses, the silence between words. But here, it lived in the air itself, breathing through the pipes, waiting in corners, humming just loud enough to keep you awake. So that's it, and now I turn to you. Which of these facts shocked you the most and why? Share your thoughts in the comments section below and tune in for our next Classic Movie Rewind.